Welcome to the Daily Coffee Pro by Mapper Forward, friends. Today on the podcast, does coffee have a branding problem? I think that if you were a listener of this podcast, you have heard me talk about this ad nauseum. But I want to have a sparked, fresh discussion in our industry about this because I think we need to do something about it. What do I mean by does coffee have a branding problem? We have this ubiquitous term coffee. We call roasted coffee coffee. We call a cup of batch brew coffee coffee. We call espresso based coffee coffee. We call instant coffee coffee. We call green coffee coffee. You're sick of hearing me say the word coffee. I get it. You get my point. We have this term, coffee, that we use for a ton of different things. And we are sitting here wondering why we can't get people to pay more for coffee. When we use the term coffee for a bunch of different things, how can we expect our consumers to understand the difference between all the different types of coffees that exist out there? Now, we have a mammoth task ahead of us. We want people to start valuing a cup of coffee and start paying more so that we as small business owners can start looking at raising our profit margins greater than 3% while still paying our staff more than what we're paying them. So we have a few tasks ahead of us. We want to pay our staff more. We want to make sure that coffee producers are getting paid more, but we need to make sure that we're building more solid businesses so that when we face tough times in the future, we don't have to lay off staff. We've got enough padding there to make sure that our businesses survive and we can weather storms. In order to do that, though, we've got to start getting a better definition of what coffee is and how we talk to our consumers about the coffee that we're supplying them with and why not all coffee is the same. In a recent Sydney coffee town hall, we had a really great comment come from one of our community members, Eddie. And Eddie said, let me give some context. The question for our Sydney coffee town hall was, should a cup of coffee in Sydney be more expensive? And to give you some context to that, wages are very high in Sydney. And when I say high, they're somewhere around the $25 an hour. Rent is very expensive in Sydney. And yet, comparative to other parts of the world, typically outside of Australia, we have the same price for a cup of coffee, let's say compared to California, where I have recently been living. Price of a latte in California is somewhere around $4, between $4 and $5, which here the average price in Sydney, the average price of a latte is $4. And yet we have higher wages and higher rent than in California. More than double the wages here than in California. And California is amongst the highest paying in the country in the US. And so there's no wonder that businesses are struggling big time here in Australia with regards to their profit margins. Now, When we asked the question at the Sydney Coffee Town Hall, we opened it up for discussion to hear people's thoughts. And Eddie said this really great thing. He said, before we start focusing on increasing the price, we need to start increasing the value of coffee, which sparked a really great discussion about what do we value in coffee. And in a future episode of the podcast, we're going to talk about that. But if we increase the value of coffee, we need to increase the messaging or create a different message around what the value is that we're offering, so that we're separating out the kind of coffee that we're offering from the same coffee that's being offered at, let's say, a 7-Eleven. So what is it, the things around the coffee that we're charging $5 or $6 for, which it should be even higher than that to cover the costs. It should be around $7 or $8. But how do we adjust the value and the messaging behind the value of what we're offering so that people get a clear understanding of the difference between all of the different kinds of coffees? Giovanna, who also attended the Sydney Coffee Town Hall, made a really great suggestion. She was saying that the idea was that we need to start looking at the difference between coffee and luxury coffee. So luxury coffee is different from specialty coffee. It includes specialty coffee, but from what her great suggestion was, is that there are people that are willing to pay for a luxury experience, but it needs to be a luxury experience. And sure, they will buy less. They won't frequent your store as often, but you will be selling a product that pays your staff well, where your consumers understand how expensive it is to pay a fair price for coffee, and it means that you will have profit margins that allow you to run a healthy business that will survive being stress tested. So we've got some ways to go around how we better define the brand of the different types of coffee. And I want to leave you with a question. What are you doing in your workplace, whether you own the business or not? What are you doing to help your customers understand the difference between all the different types of coffee? Let me know in the comments. It's a really fascinating debate that I think needs to be had, or a discussion that needs to be explored by all of us in our industry. I hope this gives you something to ponder on. Peace, love, and peanut butter, friends. Have an amazing rest of your day.